Hey, friends, welcome back to the self love series. And today I'm super excited for you to be here because we're going to talk about something so powerful, but I believe at the same time, it's so misunderstood. We're going to be talking today about the difference between self care and self love and why that truly matters. I want you to hear that today. The difference between self care and self love and why that matters. And I'm super excited you guys are here. If you don't know who I am, my name is Sam Jones. I'm an entrepreneur, certified self love coach, co author of the Self Love Journey 8 Dimensions of Wellness, and co creator of the Self Love Alignment Method. And today we're going to be talking about, like I said, something super powerful, but most importantly, today isn't just a webinar. This is a workshop. What does that mean? That means that we're going to enter this day with doing the work. And I want to start off with setting a strong foundation for us here, setting a strong foundation. So, hey, I'm super excited you guys are here. If you're jumping on in here, shoot down the comment section where you're from, where you're at, maybe what time you're listening to this at. But most importantly, share this with somebody that needs to be here. Maybe you're like, Sam, I know somebody that needs to hear this. Share this with them. Share this with them. But hey, I'm super excited you guys are here. But hey, I want you to grab a piece of paper for me. Let's start off with a strong foundation. Because like I talked about today, we're going to be focusing on something that I feel like is truly misunderstood. But most importantly, I want to step in today with you having your clarity in what it is. See, I don't want to define what self-care is for you or what self-love is for you. I want you to enter today with, what do you define that as? So I want you to give yourself a piece of paper, and what you're going to do is you're going to draw a line right down the center of that piece of paper. And on the right side, I want you to write down self-care. And on the left side, I want you to write down self-love. And I want you to think about, I want you to write 10 things on each side, if you can, about what does self-care mean to me? I want you to think about that today. I'm going to give you guys a minute here as we write that down. So like I said, on the right hand, you're going to have the self-care. On the left hand of your sheet, you're going to have self-love. I want you to write 10 things about what self-care means to you. Is self-care bubble baths? Is self-care a nice walk after work? What does self-care mean to you? But most importantly, on the left side, I want you to think about, what does self-love mean to me? Is it being honest with myself? Is it giving myself grace? What does self-love and self-care mean to you? So I'm going to give you a 60-second timer here, friends. Like I said today, we're going to be entering in today with our definition for ourselves. I want you to define it, what it looks like for you at this moment. Because today I'm looking for you to find clarity in both realms, but most importantly, maybe redefine what it means for you today. So I'm going to set that timer. I want you to do the work. Grab that piece of paper. Let's get this to work here, friends. All right, friends, welcome back. I'm glad you guys are here. So I hope you wrote down for yourself some of those definitions as you enter into self-love. I'd love for you to shoot down in the comment section. Somebody shoot me some of those things. Shoot down in the comment section. What does self-love mean to you? Let's focus on the realm of self-love. What does self-love mean to you? Let's see down. Shoot down in the comment section. I'd love to see what you guys are saying down there as self-love means to you. I see grace. I see grace in there. All right. Will, I see that. I like that. Will says grace. He says self-love means eating right. Okay. And I love these answers because I want this. You can't get this wrong. This is what you define self love as. Self love is how I treat myself. I like that. I like that. I see that. CC. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. So now we're gonna go into the realm. I want you to think about what is. So now we talked a little bit of those. I see a lot of comments coming in here. Self love means, yeah, how I feel in my, how I take care of myself. Okay, I like that. I like that. I like that. I agree. I agree with that. So now let's go into that realm of self care. Now we talked about self love, and I want you to have your list. And if that didn't give you enough time, please give yourself some time to finish that list as we do the work today. But if don't worry, we can always go back and look at this list because it's going to grow for us here. So I want you to think about what self-care looks like. What is self-care? What have you defined self-care for? Okay, I see that. I see that, Ashley. You said spa day. Spa day. Self-care is a spa day. Let's see what else we got here. What else do we got here? Self-care is, okay. Eating healthy. That's a great thing, right? Self-care. That's how we take care of ourselves, eating healthy. All right, taking a bath. That's a good one. I like that. I like that right there, Robert. You said that. You said taking a bath. Yes, that's necessary. That is a part of self-care. I like that. I like that, you guys. But yeah, I want you to think about that list. And I want you to know that there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer when it comes to your definition, because that's where we're at. And I think, like I talked about many times, is clarity equals confidence, but confidence, knowing's our intention. It's about knowing where we're at to get to where we want to be. And like I said, in many ways, I feel like some of these definitions of what self-care is and what self-love is something somebody else has defined for us. And I want you to think about your definition so far when it comes to what self-love is for yourself or what self-care is for yourself. Did you make that decision, or did somebody tell you that's what it is for you? I want you to think that today. How many times are we taking someone else's, the world's definition, our parents' definition, what we've been told definition, but how have we truly defined self-care for ourselves? How have we truly defined self-love for ourselves? And I really want to unpack that today. I want to unpack that today. What does self-love mean to you? And we're going to go into our first little slide here because, yes, that's important. We're talking about that today. We're talking about what's the difference between self-care and self-love? Because like I said, I think many times we find it, and I love that we had so many definitions in different realms, because maybe somebody heard a definition into self-love and you're like, well, for me, that's self-care. And somebody heard something, well, for me, what they call self-care is what I consider self-love. And I want you to know that there's no wrong or right answer here, but I want you to be clear. Because I think when we lack clarity, we don't have confidence. And then we find ourselves thinking we're showing ourselves love, thinking we're caring for ourselves, but we're relying on someone else's definition and not our own. And that's today what I want to unpack for you today. I want you to stepping forward, knowing that you're stepping forward with your definition, because realizing that your definition matters, because that is where the starting point is. So, okay, friends, we're going to get into our first little slide here. Hey, team, we're talking about this today. We're talking about we are exhausted because what? We are treating the symptoms and not the source. I want you to think about that when it comes to your goals and dreams. And I really love this analogy here. It's like we're treating the leaves. I want you to think about yourself as a plant, right? We're treating the leaves. We're doing the bubble baths. We're treating yourself. We're seeking temporary emotional relief. And what is that? It's like, how do we get a plant to grow? Just by spraying the leaves? Treating the leaves? Or if you want something to live, you would want to water the roots, right? At the end of the day, when we're watering a plant, we're looking for the water to get to the roots. And what is the roots of things? Is making those hard choices, setting those strict boundaries, radically changing your life. See, I want you to hear this today. Your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. That's a powerful quote by Jay Shetty. And I really want you to hear that again as you think about self care and self love. Your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. And I want you to think about yourself when it comes to your goals and dreams and the things you are looking to achieve. Have you just been treating the symptoms? Or have you been truly getting to the root of things? Have you found yourself doing the surface level treatment but not really making the hard choices? Have you said, I'm treating myself with care, but not really setting those strict boundaries? Have you just been seeking temporary relief and not radically changing your life? Because that's a choice we get to make today, friends. That's the power that you have today. And it starts at time, and that's what we want to focus on today is not focusing on the surface level change. We're talking about the inner change. We're talking about the radical change. We're talking about having clarity in the direction of your life. So like I said here, team, when it comes to your goals and dreams, are we focusing truly on self-care? What is self-care? It's action. It's that surface level nurturing. What's the result? It soothes the symptoms and provides temporary relief. I want you to hear that today. That surface level nurturing only soothes the symptoms and provides just temporary relief. And what does that do? It's just simply polishing the leaves. I mean, there's a funny analogy I like to talk about. Back in, I don't know if they still have it, but there was a thing called Lemon Busters. And what did Lemon Busters do? It really, you can look at a beautiful car, and I've done this many times. I'm like, I wanted this car so bad, but I didn't realize that, I'm looking at the outside, the interior is beautiful, the paint looks great, the rims are nice, but I'm not looking at the engine. And that's what I believe the engine of towards your goals and dreams, the engine towards your destiny, it starts with that self-love. And what is self-love truly? It's really action, that deep internal alignment that is your personal responsibility. I want you to hear that today. Self-love is deep internal alignment and personal responsibility. And what is the result of taking that internal alignment and that personal responsibility? It addresses the root cause and creates lasting emotional capacity. I want you to hear that today. I want you to hear this powerful word, lasting emotional capacity. Lasting emotional capacity. See, not just polishing the leaves, not just soothing the symptoms, but doing that work that's going to last. We're looking to build something that lasts here. Who's here today looking for a love that lasts? I want you to hear this metaphor. Healing the root system. It's time to start healing the roots. And like I talked about, when it came to Lemon Busters, right? We can look polished and beautiful on the outside. But if we haven't done that personal responsibility, if we're not in that internal alignment, it's not going to last. We're just soothing the symptoms, but polishing the leaves. I want you to think about your goals and dreams. When it comes to the self-care you have for yourself, are you just surface level polishing the leaves? Are you just focused on the outside but not on the inside? Not on the lasting change, but just for temporary comfort. But I really want to go back to that quote, like Jay said, it's so powerful. He says, your comfort zone is a beautiful place. I want you to hear this today. Nothing changed there. I want you to hear that. Nothing changes in your comfort zone. So it's time to start dealing with the roots. And I like this right here. It's a little framework here. So we're talking about the alignment matrix here. I want you to think about the dimensions of self-care as it leaves, and the roots are self-love, right? It's the focus. Self-care says, when it comes to the focus, self-care, the leaves is emotional comfort. And self-love, the roots, is emotional courage. I want you to hear that today. The dimension of focus when it comes to self-care is that emotional comfort, that surface level, that polished leaf approach. But that self-love, the roots, is having that courage to have those hard conversations. And the analogy right here is like, putting the bandage on the wound, right? We're just putting the bandage on. We're just soothing the symptom. But what's the self-love part? It's cleaning the wound so it can truly heal. It's not just that surface level treatment. It's not just slapping a band-aid on it and calling it good. We're looking here to make it heal efficiently. Cleaning the wound, doing the hard thing. And it really made me think about one time I was a motorcycle rider, and I didn't have gloves, and I was young. They call it young and dumb, but I was wanting to learn wheelies on a motorcycle, and I was doing wheelies and fell eventually. It was inevitable. I fell on a wheelie and I had no gloves, and I skinned my arms. Now, the hardest thing there is, I had road grind in my hands, and the first thing you got to do is you got to scrub that out of the wound so it can efficiently heal, because having that dirt in there will only cause an infection, but it won't heal correctly. So I just wanted to just put a band-aid on it and call it good. My friend's like, no, man, the only way to do that is you're going to have to clean the wound. And it was hard. It was difficult. It was painful. It was uncomfortable, but I had to do it so it could truly heal. And I want you to think about some of those ways, those areas in your life that you're just slapping a band-aid on it. You're not cleaning the wound to let it heal. It's like leaving the door open and hoping the bad things don't step back in. And what's the reaction? Taking a vacation to escape the stress. How many things are we just finding ourselves escaping instead of having that difficult conversation or leaving? It's time to start doing that. Instead of, self-care says, I'm going to take that vacation just to escape my stress. But self-love says, having the difficult conversation and leaving. And here's the challenge. Self-care is easy to indulge. But self-love, the roots, it requires vulnerability and facing the uncomfortable truths. And I want you to think about your goals. I want you to think about things that are going on. Have you just been surface level? Have you just found yourself hoping for things to change here and not doing the work? Avoiding the hard conversations, hoping things will change? Just removing yourself from the stress, but instead of having the hard conversations, realizing that, hey, you're going to have to be vulnerable. You're going to have to step outside of your comfort zone, because that's where the true change lies. But most importantly, what I really love about these two spectrums, if you really look at it, it's simply one choice off. Like the variances aren't so hard. Think about this. I'm going to go on vacation to escape the stress, or I'm going to have that hard conversation and leave. How many of us have avoided the hard conversations in life? I got to be guilty here. I'm guilty. I'm guilty just like you are. But I realized the more I avoided, the more they escalated. But when I started to step into my truth, not avoiding, but stepping into the uncomfort zone, the uncomfortable times became comfort. And it's just simply one choice away. I want you to hear this here, friends. Self-love is the foundation. I need you to hear that, to really let that sink in. Self-love is the foundation. Self-care is simply maintenance. You see, self-love is boundaries, it's forgiveness, it's integrity, it's accountability. And what is self-care? Self-care is rest. It's play. It's relaxation. It's treating yourself. And in the middle of those things is they go so well together because they're both intertwined into sustainable growth. You can't have one without the other. And when we combine them, we give ourselves sustainable growth. When we're setting those clear boundaries, when we're having those rest days, when we find ourselves in forgiveness, when we are integrating play, when we're being and having that integrity, where we find that relaxation, that accountability, when we start treating ourselves, we find that sustainable growth. But I need you to hear this key insight. It says, you cannot bubble bath your way out of a life that repeatedly violates your boundaries. I need you to hear this again to really let that sink in. You cannot bubble bath your way out of a life that repeatedly violates your boundaries. Without understanding and transforming your suffering, surface acts merely are distractions. I want you to hear that today. Those surface level treating yourselves, those surface level rest days will never truly amount to the change you're looking for. They'll just be a distraction. And I think many of us find ourselves in distraction and call it love. We find ourselves in distraction and call it boundaries. We find ourselves in distraction and call it forgiveness. But I want you to hear that. You cannot bubble bath your way out of a life that repeatedly violates your boundaries. And I want you to hear this today. What have you been allowing to violate your boundaries? What have you been allowing in your life and you've just been avoiding? The pain, the disrespect. But I love how you can really transform your suffering into strength by taking accountability, by stepping forward with vulnerability, but most importantly, by making that choice. So I want you to hear this today. We're going to be talking about the pillars here, friends, the pillars, the 3 pillars of real self-love. The first root is self-respect. It's protecting your energy. The second root is self-compassion, holding your humanity, realizing that nothing's perfect. But root 3 is self-trust. It's keeping your promises to yourself. And when you hear these roots of self-love, have you been protecting your energy? Have you been holding your humanity and giving yourself grace? Have you been keeping the promises to yourself? Because these are the pillars of real self-love. Isn't that powerful? And I want you to think about when you look at that list of what we identified in those 2 brackets, we had the self-care and then we had the self-love. Are any of these on your list? Or any of these under your self-care list? I want you to hear that today. Are you respecting yourself? Are you protecting your energy? Are you keeping your word to yourself? Because this is the foundation of self-love. And the foundation is where you're building from. Are you building from trust? Are you building realizing you're human? Are you building from a firm foundation? Are you building from love? And we're starting right here. See, pillar number 1, self-respect, is simply the boundary. And what is that boundary that we need when it comes to that self-respect, when it comes to self-love? It says saying no to what drains you without over-explaining. I must feel like when we say no, you've been taught to validate your no. When we say no, we have to give them a reason. But this is saying no without judgment, no without fear, but knowing that when I say no, no means no. And are you setting clear expectations for how you will be treated? But most importantly, are you refusing to accept behavior that violates your core values? See, I love this right here by Brene Brown. I love this quote by Brene Brown. She says, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves even when we are at risk of disappointing others. I want you to hear that again to really let that sink in. This is a powerful quote. I really love this quote by Brene Brown. She says, daring to set boundaries is having courage to love ourselves even when we're at risk of disappointing others. And how many of us find ourselves in fear of disappointing others? Find ourselves in fear of not being accepted. Find ourselves in fear of not being enough. But I think when it comes to self-reflect, I love that quote because the key word I want you to hear, that it's going to demand courage. It's going to demand you refusing to accept behavior that violates your values. It starts by setting those clear expectations of how you'll be treated, but most importantly, saying no to what drains you without over-explaining. And I want you to look at your list when it comes to self-love, or were any of those on there? Were any of those on your side when it comes to yourself, or is this under your self-care list? Because clear is kind. Ooh, it's one of my favorite quotes by Brene Brown. She says, clear is kind. A request exceeds your capacity. You know, saying yes to please builds resentment. Saying yes to please, self-trust erodes. Saying yes to please leads to emotional exhaustion. But when we are setting clear boundaries, there's going to be short-term discomfort, but your energy is protected. And then you're able to have that authentic connection is maintained. You see, how many of us are saying yes for acceptance? Are saying yes out of fear? Are saying yes because this means love? But I love this quote by Brene Brown. She says, clear is kind. Not only are you being kind to yourself, but you're being kind to the other person because you're allowing them to be clear and kind. See, when we are authentic, build authentic connections with others, we allow them to do the same. You see, the limits test, it says before answering any question, pause and ask, is this aligned with who I want to become? Ooh, I love that. I love that. It's a simple practice, but it will change everything. Because many of us are saying yes to things that aren't aligned with the person we want to become. See, every day you have the opportunity to make a choice. Are you moving forward or stepping away towards your dreams? I need you to hear that today. See, are your yeses, one of my favorite quotes says, are your yeses bringing you stresses? Because that's a choice that you are making. See, many of us are saying yes when we really mean no, and then we wonder why we are holding on to this resentment and feeling exhausted. But see, not only do you protect your energy, but you start to build that self-trust with yourself. I want you to hear that today. When you start saying no, but you start saying yes to things that are in line with you, you start building that self-trust back. And that's part of that strong foundation. So I want you to hear this today. We're going to that second pillar. Self-compassion is that forgiveness. And I really love this study. It says the 90-second way, which just really changed my life. It says, the time is 0 to 90 seconds. Sitting with the physical discomfort for an emotion instead of distracting yourself. Replacing self-criticism with the voice that you would use for someone you love. And dousing shame with empathy to create the safety required for real change. And I love this study because it was really talking about how truly that pain, that discomfort really only lasts 90 seconds. But how many of us let that 90-second pain last a week, last 24 hours, last years? We might be holding on to years of pain, but I love this 90-second wave because when we just feel that emotion, we can truly let it in there in that 90 seconds. But many of us are holding on to it. And I really love this quote by Thich Nhat Hanh. He says, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." I need you to hear that, because if you leave with that, I need you to hear this. You yourself, as much as anybody in this entire universe, deserves your love and affection. And how many of us have not given ourselves that love, have not given ourselves that affection, but thinking, if I truly love myself, I'll give myself to others first. See, I want you to hear that when you build from that foundation of love with yourself, that's when we truly spread love to everyone else. But realizing that setting that physical discomfort for an emotion instead of distracting, it starts with yourself. It starts with placing that self-criticism with your voice and that you would usually use with somebody else. I love this quote because it said, treat yourself as you wish somebody treated you when you were a child. Isn't that powerful? Treating yourself as you wish you were treated as a child. Treating yourself how you would treat your best friend. Some people treat their friends better than they treat themselves. Their dogs even. Their cars even. But you, more than anyone else, deserves love and affection. But I need you to hear this. Observation versus identification. See, many times we find ourselves in this place. How many times have we been telling ourselves that we're failures? And we identification of shame, right? It leads. What does shame truly lead to? I want you to think about, what does shame lead to? It leads to hiding. It leads to secrecy. It leads to self-sabotage. But when you use it as an observation of guilt, right? And you said, I've experienced a failure. Allows the objective adaptation and growth. See, this practice, I need you to understand this. Notice the critical inner voice. Do not identify with it. Replace it with, I'm learning and I'm growing. See, I think many times we attribute failures to shame and we identify ourselves. But I love how this says that, it's just simply an event. And what happens to events? They pass, they grow, they move. But we're simply learning. We are all in this journey of life learning, growing. And we don't need to identify with shame. We need to want to identify with the growth and realize that it's simply a part of the process of this amazing journey of life. So we let go of the shame and step into growth, knowing that that challenge is simply a part of the process, but isn't the end. It's the beginning of something new. And I love this here. We're really talking about this right here, pillar 3. It's time to have that self-trust. And what builds us that self-trust? It's the follow through. See, we can talk about the thing, we can dream about the thing, we can plan about the thing, but until we follow through, until we do the thing, we don't build the trust with ourselves. And I really love this. It says, following through on what you say you will do for yourself. Maintaining complete integrity between your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Showing up for your internal commitments, especially when it's inconvenient. That's where you build the self-trust. Self-trust doesn't come in the planning. You notice it didn't say it comes in the planning? It doesn't come in the dreaming. It doesn't come in the hoping. You see, I love what it says. It's showing up for your commitments, especially when it's inconvenient. But I really love this quote by Sarah Jakes Roberts. She says, your future is waiting on the other side of the version of you that keeps showing up. Ooh, that's a powerful quote. I need you to hear that again to really let that sink in. Your future is waiting on the version of you that keeps showing up, that keeps following through, that keeps doing the work, that keeps your word to your commitments, especially when it's inconvenient. And I want you to reflect on that. Is that on your list? When we look at self-care, when we look at self-love, do we have self-trust in there? Is follow through a priority? Are you following through on your goals? Are you following through your dreams? Are you following through on the things you said you were going to do? Or have you found yourself planning? Have you found yourself hoping? Have you found yourself dreaming? Because I love the side of this coin here, because I love how it's going to be inconvenient. I think many times we think when we want to achieve our goals, it's going to be easy. It's going to be hard. But I love, like we said in that quote by Jay Shetty, your comfort zone, yes, it's a beautiful place, but nothing changed there. Nothing changes in that beautiful place. And that discomfort, see, you hear it, diamonds are built under pressure, but so are your dreams. So are your goals. And they're simply on the other side. But I love this here. It says, confidence is built through consistency. I need you to hear that today. It's not going to be easy the first time. It's not going to be easy the second time. I want you to start thinking about some of the new things that you've done. Like even for me, when I thought about this webinar, this is my 5th one, and this one is probably going to be my best one, because why? I've done it consistently. Every time something gets better. And I want you to think about when you're taking action towards your goals. I think, social media has put us in a world that we're looking at people's highlight reels, but we haven't seen the process it took to get there. We haven't seen when they showed up inconveniently. We haven't seen when they didn't want to do the work. We haven't seen when it was hard, when nobody paid attention, they kept showing up. And when it comes to your goals and dreams, it's time for you to start showing up. Because confidence is built through consistency. And I love that, it starts off with that one small promise. It can be simply as walk for 10 minutes, right? It's that one small promise, that one small problem, that one small promise to yourself. I want you to hear that today. It starts with that one small promise to yourself. But it's not just making that promise. This is how our flywheel works. It says, number 2, it's about taking action. Not only is it about making that small promise, but it's about taking action. Keeping that promise despite the friction, despite the challenges, despite the doubts, despite the fears, despite the not knowing, but it's about taking action. Because what happens when you take action? Imperfectly. When you take action out of fear, when you take action in that doubt, what happens? We go to 3. Your brain registers consistency. And what does it do? Your words start to matter. See, when you start to keep that promise to yourself, you start to build that confidence in yourself. You're like, when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Afraid, with friction, inconvenient. But I'm going to be true to who I said I was going to be. And then what happens is the 4th and powerful thing. Our self-trust grows. And what happens? A new, reliable identity forms. Ooh, isn't that powerful? a new reliable identity forms when you keep showing up. But it all starts with making a small promise to yourself. How many of us today can say, I'm going to make a small promise to myself? I can do that. Or maybe you've had that small promise to yourself, but you haven't gotten to part two. You haven't been taking the action despite the friction. When time got hard, you stopped. And you said it wasn't for me. When times got hard, you quit. You said it can't happen for me. But today, I want to encourage you, it's time to step back into taking action. But most importantly, when you take action imperfectly, with fear, with doubt, with friction, your brain starts to register that consistency, and your words start to matter to yourself again. It's time for you to start making your words matter to you again. But most importantly, that's how our self-love grows. And you continually make a choice, take action, and keep repeating it, and then you grow. And I love this. It says, the warning says, every time, I need you to hear this, every time you break your promise to yourself, you've actually teach your brain that your own needs don't matter. I want you to hear that again. Every time you break your promise to yourself, you actually teach yourself that your own words don't matter. How many of us are our own greatest critic? Because when it comes to the promises the goals we set for ourselves, the dreams we have for ourselves, when it comes to the action, we're not doing it. So we find ourselves in a circle of saying it's not possible for us because we've never truly believed we could. And we find ourselves in a cycle of trying to keep promises to everyone else, but not keep the promises to ourselves. But I really love that quote that we talked about earlier. You, more than anybody in this universe, deserves love and affection. But most importantly, that love and affection starts with you. See, maybe you've been looking for that love and affection outside of yourself, but today I want you to realize that love and affection has to first start from you. Because we can only receive love in the capacity that we give ourselves. See, if you aren't willing to give it to yourself, you won't be able to receive it from anyone else. Ooh, I want you to hear that today. If you can't give it to yourself, you won't be able to receive it from anybody else. But most importantly, I need you to hear that every time you break your promise to yourself, you break a promise to yourself, you break that self-trust. So let's start making that choice to keep the promise to ourselves. Let's start making that choice to take some action. Let's start realizing that as we keep showing up, we build that our bodies are like, when I say something to myself, I'm going to do the work. But most importantly, that's where self-trust is built. And I love this right here because this is that strong, firm foundation right here, friends. It simply starts right here. The 1-1-1 practice for this week. I don't want you to screenshot this if you can. This is a 1-1-1 practice. I want you to screenshot this. Write this down because, like I said, I think many times we're trying to change our lives and we're looking to move the mountain instead of the pebble. We're trying to change our lives and we're trying to eat the elephant, but not take the one bite. We find ourselves in what we call analysis paralysis. We never do the work. But I love this here because it all starts with one. The 1-1-1 practice for this week. I want you to screenshot this, write this down. And this is to pick one pillar and take an action this week. Can you pick one pillar and take action? See, I want you to pick one self-respect, right? Set one boundary. Here's a script. I care about you, but I don't have time or the capacity for that right now. Who can set one boundary today? Can I get a yes in the chat? Can I get a yes in the chat? Shoot down the comment section. Can I get a yes in the chat? Who can set one boundary? And here's the script. I care about you, but I don't have time or the capacity for that right now. And I really love that because clarity equals kindness. When you set boundaries, you allow others to do the same. And here's our second practice right here. We got to practice some self-compassion. Can we forgive a mistake? How many of us are looking for forgiveness outside of ourselves, but we're not giving the forgiveness to ourselves? So when the critic speaks, pause. Take 3 breaths. And speak to yourself like a friend. How many of us speak to ourselves as our enemies? We speak to ourselves. We have that voice of that inner critic. Maybe it's that teacher. Maybe it's that coach. Maybe it's that person that never supported you. So when that challenge comes, that critic validates what they said. The inner critic says they were right. But it's time to give yourself some compassion this week. Forgive that one mistake. So when that critic speaks loud, I need you to pause. Take those 3 breaths. Into the nose, out the mouth. Into the nose, hold. Out the mouth, 2. Into the nose, hold. 1 count. Exhale, 2. And speak to yourself like you would a friend. How would you treat that lover? That best friend in high school? That cousin? Your parents? Someone you love? I think we need to give ourselves more grace here today. Because how we treat ourselves is how we treat everyone else. See, we seek compassion outside of our capacity and we hope that others give us that. But then we're going to go into our last one right here, our third pillar. And I love how it only starts with 1. See, you're thinking I need 8 things in each area, Sam. No, I need you to give me 1 this week. Self-trust. I need you to keep 1 promise to yourself. Commit to a 10-minute walk or stopping work at 7 p.m. And don't negotiate. Maybe it's like, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes. It doesn't need to be big. Maybe it's I'm going to take an evening walk around my block. But realize that it's starting small. It's setting that intention. It's keeping that promise to yourself. But most importantly, realizing that it starts with 1. Who's going to implement? I want you to shoot that in the comment section. Who's going to implement that 1-1-1 method this week? Who can say I can commit to that 1 thing? I can commit to 1 thing in each of those 3 pillars that's going to change the trajectory of my life. See, it's not about moving the mountain. It's about picking up a pebble each week that can build your self-trust. I want you to think about that. Each decision I make, each action I take is moving towards your destiny. Are you willing to take that step? That's the real question. Are you willing to take that next step? Because it starts right here, friends. It starts right here. Sorry. Because transformation is not about perfection. It's about alignment. It's those small choices repeatedly daily that become our new life. I need you to hear that again. Transformation is not about perfection. It's about alignment. And when it comes to the actions you've taken so far, have they been in line with the person you want to become? Are they in line with your dreams? Because the actions you take, the decisions you make, the choices you take are building the life you want. And I really love this because if you find yourself in a situation where you're like, Sam, I'm not where I want. Things aren't going my way. They actually could be a lot better. I want to encourage you today that it's not too late. I need you to hear this today. It's not too late. And like I said, more than anyone in this universe, you deserve love and affection. But the most important person that can ever give that to you is you. I need you to hear that today. The most important person that can ever give you that love, that affection, is you. Because that love starts with you. Not outside of you, but it starts with it within you. But realizing that everything can change if you're willing to take that one action, that one method. But realizing it starts with one. Can you make that one choice today to change the trajectory of my life? Can I realize that I've been living in my comfort zone for a long time, even though it's beautiful, but that's not where change comes. But most importantly, friends, I want you to realize this right here. It's time to build your root system. See, it's time to stop going surface level and getting down to the roots of things. And if you find yourself at that surface level change, it's time to make that one choice. Because self-love is a practice, not a one-time revelation. If you want ongoing dedication, support, and building this foundation, setting boundaries, or building that foundation, setting those immovable boundaries and mastering your inner alignment, I have private coaching spots open. Simply DM me self-love to claim your spots and learn more. See, if you click that link in my bio, you can also schedule a free self-love alignment meeting. Because it's time to get to the roots of things. But most importantly, it's time to do the work. See, I really love when we talked about the 1-1-1 method because, I want you to shoot that down in the comment section. So DM me self-love to get those coaching spots. You can click that link in the bio as well to schedule that free self-love assessment. That's a free 30-minute meeting with me one-on-one. We're going to talk about really where we're at, because if we don't have clarity, we won't have confidence like we talked about today. But most importantly, it's time to get off surface level and step into our power again. I need you to hear that today. I need you to hear that. If there's one thing that I want you to leave here with, you, more than anyone, deserves love and affection. I need you to hear that. You deserve love and affection more than anyone in this universe. But most importantly, it's time to start stepping outside of our comfort zone. It's time to start taking that first action. It's time to start taking the first step. Not hoping, not wishing, not dreaming, but it's keeping our promises to ourselves. It's time to start dealing with the roots so that we can start bearing the fruits that we want in our lives. But realizing that true love, self-love, starts with you. I need you to hear that today. Self-love starts with you. So, hey, friends, if you joined me here today and you found something stupidly powerful, shoot in the comment section something that has changed about your perspective in self-love and self-care. I would love if you could share your list with me, take a screenshot of that list and shoot that to me. I would love to know what's on each side of what things have you changed from side to side. So make sure you're following me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and share this live with somebody that you know needs to hear it. Because clarity is kindness. Can we be more clear with ourselves? more clear with others? But can we start keeping that promises to ourselves, realizing it's just one choice a day? But that most importantly, self-love starts with you. So make this the day you step forward towards your dreams. Make this the day you step forward with confidence. But make this the day you choose you. And realize that we have those coaching spots open. Make sure you click that link in my bio or just simply DM me self-love. Hey, the spots fill quick, especially on my calendar. And I would love to have you join you on your journey of self-love. But most importantly, step forward towards your destiny with courage, with strength, but most importantly, realizing more than anyone else in this universe, you deserve love and affection.